I never planned on working graveyard shifts at a cryogenics lab. If I'm honest, it sounded like a joke when I first saw the listing. Overnight technician needed, discretion required, high pay. The job description was vague, but the money was better than anything else I could find at the time. After getting laid off from the mill and drowning in medical debt, I didn't ask too many questions. It's just me in the building from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. No coworkers, no supervisors. No patients, at least. Not in the traditional sense. Just row after row of sealed cryopods, stretching across a temperature-controlled facility buried 2 stories underground. The pods hum quietly, like a hive of mechanical bees sleeping just beneath the surface of awareness. At first it was peaceful, sterile, easy money for doing nothing but monitoring readouts and logging status reports every hour. But the quiet here isn't normal. It's not restful. It's dense, pressurized, like sound should be happening but isn't. And sometimes it feels like the quiet is watching me. The facility is located just off the edge of town, past a wooded stretch where the streets stop working. It's surrounded by chain-link fencing and concrete. No windows. Everything's sealed and temperature-locked to keep the environment perfectly stable. Even the air smells refrigerated, cold and metallic, with an undercurrent of something sharp, almost antiseptic. They gave me a badge, a heavy parka, and a binder on my first night. The binder was thick and printed in that faded toner style that feels like it's been photocopied too many times. The manager, a man named Hartley, walked me through the front corridor without saying much. He kept looking over his shoulder, as if someone might be behind us. I figured he was just exhausted. Looked at Hartley, only said one thing that really stuck with me. He paused at the threshold leading to the cryo floor, hand on the biometric scanner, and glanced at me. "This place remembers things," he muttered, not meeting my eyes. "Stick to the rules in the binder. No improvising. Don't treat the pods like they're furniture." I smiled, tried to lighten the mood. "You make it sound like they're alive." He didn't smile back. He scanned his hand, and the door opened with a soft hiss. I didn't think much of it at the time. I thought he was trying to scare the new guy, or maybe he was just burned out. But the longer I've worked here, the more that sentence rolls around in my head. This place remembers things. There's a tension under the surface. Something my body feels before my brain does. The hairs on the back of my neck stand up whenever I pass pod number 19. Even though its readout says stable, the internal cameras sometimes glitch on that road too. Just for a second. A flicker. But only when I'm walking past it. I keep telling myself it's just a coincidence. That cryogenics is high-tech and delicate, and anomalies happen. But last night, I swear I heard something shift in the room, like a slow stretch. Flesh against plastic. I stood frozen for almost 5 minutes, waiting for the sound again. It never came, but I haven't stopped thinking about it since. And tonight, something's already different. There's condensation on pod number 19's viewing glass. It shouldn't be there. Not unless the temperature seal broke, or someone opened it. I remember my first night here more clearly than I should. Not just the details, but the way everything felt. It was the kind of cold that gets inside your bones, even with the facility gear. The kind that makes you feel like you're being stored too. Hartley met me at the gate, just before sundown. He didn't say much, just scanned us both through the access locks, and handed me the binder as we walked down a long, silent hallway lined with white LED panels. The hum of the power system echoed in that corridor. Everything echoed here, even soft footsteps. Like the building didn't want to forget any sound made inside it. The elevator ride down to the cryo floor was unusually long. Longer than it should have been for a 2-story descent. I didn't think about it until later, but the lab didn't seem to be measured in floors. It felt measured in thresholds. When we reached the main operations room, Hartley flicked on a wall of monitors. Each screen showed a narrow slice of the cryo bay's dozens of pods in each, row after row. Some were frosted, others crystal clear, all of them still. He handed me a folded page from the binder, worn and creased. A page titled, Operational Rules for Overnight Cryo. Technician Rev. 18C. There were 7 rules printed on the page. Not explained, not justified, just listed. He made me read them out loud, 1 by 1.1. Never open a pod, not for any reason. If the internal system triggers an alert, log it and call the red line. Do not engage. 2. If you hear tapping from inside a pod, ignore it. It is not a malfunction. 3. At exactly 3:12 a.m., check the northwest corridor camera manually. If the feed is blank, continue working. If you see a figure standing, eyes closed, log the occurrence and do not speak. 4. Pod number P is not to be approached, even if it's vitals flatline, especially if it's vitals flatline. 5. Do not speak to anyone inside the facility between 2 o'clock and 4 a.m. unless you saw them enter with your own eyes. 6. Always leave an offering in the observation window before your shift ends. 1 drop of blood is sufficient. 7. Never, under any circumstance, look inside the maintenance shaft beneath the cryo floor, even if something knocks. I remember laughing when I read Rule 6. I thought it was some kind of dark humor or twisted initiation ritual, but Hartley didn't laugh. He just pointed to a metal plate above the observation window, right above the exit scanner. Burned into the surface actual scorched metal was the same symbol printed on the rule sheet. A kind of closed eye with vertical lines running through it. I later found the same mark, scratched into the corner of pod number 19. I didn't make the rules, Hartley had said, quietly. I just followed them. You will too. He didn't explain what the red line was in Rule 1. I only learned about it later, an unlisted number on the back of the binder that connects to a pre-recorded voice. You leave a message. No one answers, but someone always listens. That first night was quiet. I checked vitals, logged temps, and walked the perimeter once every hour. I stayed away from pod number 19, like the paper said. I didn't even get close enough to see inside the frost dot. At 3:12 a.m., I stared at the northwest corridor camera. The screen was blank, static humming lightly. I logged the incident and kept working. At 5:58, I pricked my finger with a lancet and let a single drop fall on the observation window's center circle. I felt stupid doing it, like I was playing pretend in a haunted house. But I did it anyway. That was 2 months ago now. I don't laugh at the rules. I follow them. Every night, I follow them exactly. Because after a while, you start to notice things. Things you can't explain away. The tapping rule to it happened on my 3rd week. Pod number 33. Soft, rhythmic taps. Exactly 3 seconds apart. I stood there, frozen, my breath fogging the glass. Then it stopped, and the pod's vitals showed no changes. The figure on the northwest corridor camera, I've seen it twice, pale, unmoving, eyes closed, like it's waiting for something. It's always gone by the next cycle, but the sense of being watched lingers like static in your teeth. I've never looked inside the maintenance shaft. I don't need to. Something inside it breathes, and as for pod number 19, I've passed it every shift. I don't know who or what is in there, but the longer I'm here, the more I feel like it knows I'm watching it, like it's waiting for me to slip. Tonight, the rules feel heavier. Not just printed words on old paper, but obligations, contracts, and something has changed. Something subtle, but undeniable. The air near pod number 19 is warmer, just slightly, but in a place where every degree is controlled. That's not just strange, it's impossible. It happened 3 nights ago. I didn't mean to break the rules. Honestly, I didn't even know I had not, at first. Everything had been quiet, which in this place never feels like a comfort. Just a long stretch of humming machines and whispering air ducts. I'd done my hourly vital sweep, logged the readings, and was halfway through a stale sandwich when I heard it. A knock. Soft. 3 taps. Right behind me. I froze. I already knew what it was before I turned around. Pod number 33. Again. It was the same cadence as last time measured. Human. Deliberate. Rule 2. If you hear tapping from inside a pod, ignore it. I stood up from the desk and walked to the monitor bank. Camera for B, the view facing pod number 33, was active. No motion. Nothing in the feed. I hovered my hand over the intercom button for a second, then stopped myself. There was no one to report this to. Not in real time, just the red line. I could leave a message, but they wouldn't respond. Another knock, louder this time. I tried to focus on the rules, ignore it, but my body wouldn't listen. The sound triggered something primal in me: curiosity, fear, the irresistible urge to confirm that I wasn't imagining things. That's when I made the mistake. I walked back down the aisle, slowly, past the dormant pods, my boots echoing like hollow bones across the floor. When I reached pod number 33, I didn't touch it. I didn't say a word, but I leaned closer, just enough to see. That was the violation. The frost on the glass had cleared in a perfect override where a face would be, but there was no face. The figure inside had turned around, back facing the glass, spine arched in a way that didn't look natural, as if they'd twisted at the waist, head tilted straight back toward the seal. There were deep red marks on the pod's interior, long, smeared trails, like someone had pressed against the glass from the inside with their palms and dragged them downward. But the vitals readout still blinked. Subject, stable. I backed away slowly, pulse thudding in my ears. When I turned to leave, I heard the knock again, only now it was behind me. I didn't look back. I walked straight to the observation window, opened the binder, and stared at the rules like they might somehow update themselves, clarify what to do next. They didn't. At the end of my shift, I added the incident to the log. I didn't mention that I looked inside. I didn't mention that the pod door was unlatched, because that part I hadn't noticed until the next night. It was subtle, easy to miss, but the pod's lock indicator, normally green, was flickering red and yellow. Not open, not closed, unstable, and the frost pattern on the glass had changed. Now there were HANDPRINTS. From the outside, I submitted a redline report. No reply, just a new notation appeared in the binder the next day. A sticky note, blank, except for a time written in shaky ink. 3:33 a.m. No explanation, no initials, and below it, a new line added to the bottom of the rules sheet. 8. If a pod unlatches without cause, do not investigate. Review camera logs at 3:33 a.m. Do not rewind, pause, or save. Watch once, then log and delete. It wasn't there. The night before, I checked the cameras from 3:33 a.m. The feed was grainy, distorted like it had been run through static, but I saw movement. Neopod #33. Someone or something stood in front of it, tall, head tilted forward, hair obscuring the face, hands pressed against the pod's surface, trembling. It stared for 30 seconds. Then it turned and walked away. No sound, no trace. The pod door slowly clicked shut behind it. I worked the night shift at a cryogenics lab. One of the pods just opened. The next night, the rules started to make more sense. Not just as guidelines, but as defenses. Thin, brittle walls holding something back. And I started to realize how easily those walls could crumble. At 2:41 a.m., the facility lights flickered for the first time since I started working here. Just for a second, barely noticeable, but I felt it like the building exhaled. I was making my rounds when I saw it. The door to the northwest corridor was slightly ajar. That door is never open. It leads to one of the back service wings, long since sealed off. No cameras back there, no logs. Just a blacked out zone on the floor plan. Rule 3 had burned itself into my mind by then. 3:12 a.m. Check the northwest corridor camera manually. If the feed is blank, continue working. If you see a figure standing, eyes closed, log the occurrence and do not speak. I walked to the monitor bank. The corridor feed wasn't blank. There was a figure tall, still, eyes shut, standing just outside the open door. I should have looked away, but I didn't. I leaned closer, tried to make out the face. Its eyes snapped open. My heart stopped. It didn't move. It didn't blink. It just stared into the camera, into me. I scrambled backward, knocking my chair over. When I looked again, the feed was blank. Static hissed quietly. I logged it. I didn't speak. I didn't breathe right for 5 minutes. That alone would have been enough to shake me, but that wasn't the only escalation. At 4:07 a.m., an alert pinged on the master console. Temperature anomaly pod number 19. Internal temp +2C. That's not just an error. That's a biological threat. A thaw risk. An emergency. I pulled up the pod's status log. The vitals were steady, but changed. Not in numbers, but in format. Normally, the readouts show heart rate, neural activity, core temp, and metabolic suppression. But now, there were additional fields and labeled just static rows of numbers pulsing irregularly, and something else. At the bottom of the readout was a blinking line of text. Subject interface initiated. That's not a real status. There's no such mode in the cryo system. I checked the feed. Pod number 19's glass was still fogged, but only from the inside, as if breath had been pressed against it repeatedly. Like whatever was inside had been exhaling. And in the condensation, I saw it, a handprint, but not just a print. It was moving. The condensation shifted ever so slightly, trailing a fresh streak down the interior like a fingertip was drawing through it over and over, circling, waiting. I backed away slowly. I went to the binder and flipped to the original rule. 4. Pod number 19 is not to be approached, even if its vitals flatline, especially if its vitals flatline, but the vitals hadn't flatlined. They'd evolved. The screen suddenly glit. The camera feed blinked out for a second, and when it came back, something was different. The pod was still sealed, still fogged, but the handprint was gone, and in its place, scrawled faintly into the condensation, were 3 letters. U-I. Closed the monitor, logged the anomaly, wrote nothing about the message, because admitting you saw it makes it real. I'm starting to learn that whatever's inside pod number 19, it isn't sleeping anymore. It's watching, and it knows who I am. After what I saw on the glass of pod number 19, I couldn't sleep. I went home at the end of my shift, but I didn't eat, didn't shower, just sat there in my apartment with the lights off, door locked, blinds drawn. Every time I blinked, I saw the message again. Those 3 letters drawn in the fog, :U. That night, something changed in me. I wasn't just unsettled, I was afraid, but also ... curious. That's when I made my second mistake. I wanted to know more, not from the binder, not from Hartley, from the source. The cryo lab has a secure server room near the maintenance wing. Technicians aren't supposed to access it without clearance, but the badge I was given had a barely worn sticker over the back, like it was covering something, so I peeled it off. Underneath was a string of digits, a second ID code. I entered it into the server console on my next shift. The screen blinked red, then green. Access granted. Tech privilege tier 2. A hidden file directory appeared. Hundreds of logs, all timestamped and unlabeled. Most were short, just temperature reports or pod integrity checks, but one stood out. A folder labeled Project Blackroot Archive. I hesitated, then opened it. Inside were dozens of video files and text transcripts, employee logs, incident reports, unofficial memos. None of them were newer than 7 years ago. The earliest entries dated back to 1981. Most of the logs were fragmented, corrupted, or incomplete, but what I'd managed to read chilled me. This lab wasn't just storing people, it was testing containment protocols. And not all subjects had consented, according to one log. The facility was originally built as part of an off-the-books project under a defunct government medical division. Its original name was Site Theta B, and it wasn't public knowledge. The stated goal: preservation and isolation of biologically non-compliant entities, not patients. There were redacted reports about Subject 19, specifically early tests, anomalous readings, and one incident labeled Interface Event Type 3. The summary was brief, but terrifying. Subject 19 regained partial consciousness during induced stasis. Vocalizations recorded despite suspended respiration. Internal temperature rose 11 degrees Celsius in under 4 minutes. Glass warping observed. Intervention unsuccessful. Subject restabilized after 1 hour, but signs of psychic bleed noted in attending staff. Psychic bleed. Another file was an audio log, distorted, but playable. A man's voice, low and shaky. It knew things it shouldn't. Not like reading your thoughts, more like remembering them before you even have them. One of the techs started crying when she walked past. Said it looked at her like a disappointed parent. Then a second voice, clearer, older. Pod 19 is not to be thawed. Not by us. Not ever. It's not asleep. It's waiting. There was a document partially redacted written by someone, identified only as Dr. E. Rain. It looked like an internal memo. The entity inside Pod 19 exhibits no need for oxygen, nutrition, or sensory input. Yet it maintains synaptic coherence. When left undisturbed, it is dormant. When observed, it becomes ... aware. Observation seems to awaken a mirroring behavior. Eye contact accelerates these. We believe it operates on an information-based parasitic model. Its understanding of the observer becomes a means of intrusion. Simply put, the more you learn about it, the more it learns about you. That's when I realized what the rules really are: not procedures, not safety steps. They're containment rituals, behavioral blinders designed to keep you from noticing what's behind the glass. Because noticing is the first step toward letting it in. I sat there in the dark, trembling. I should have stopped reading, but I found one more file, a security video, dated March 3, 2018, about 6 years ago. Time, stamp, 3:12 a.m., camera, northwest. Corridor just like the rule. The figure appears on screen, pale eyes closed, standing silently in front of the door. Then, something changes. The door behind it opens. Hartley walks into frame. He looks younger, nervous, holding something in his hand, up, cup or vial. He walks past the figure without seeing. It doesn't react, but the figure's eyes open as he passes. Slowly, like petals unfolding. Hartley enters the observation room. A minute passes. The figure turns and follows. The feed cuts out. I checked the logs from that night. There's no record of Hartley ever leaving the building. No sign in the next day. No time off request. Just nothing yet. He's here now. Still working, still managing the lab, or at least wearing his face. I closed the files and wiped my digital traces, or tried to. I don't know if it mattered, because as I exited the server room, I heard it. A faint whisper, drifting from down the corridor. From the cryo floor. Not a word, not exactly. Just a tone, like my name. But spoken underwater, warped, drawn out. I didn't check pod number 19 that night. I didn't have to. It had already found me. The next night, the facility felt wrong. I couldn't say exactly how. The lights still buzzed overhead. The temperature readings held steady. All the cameras blinked to life at the usual intervals. But it felt like walking into a memory of the place, not the place itself. Like the lab was mimicking what it thought I expected to see, and whatever was inside pod number 19, whatever had written "You" on the glass had noticed that I knew more than I was supposed to. That knowledge had changed something between us. It started just after 1 a.m. Was making my second lap through the cryo floor when the alarms triggered. A low, droning sound, not sharp, not urgent, but slow and thick, like a heartbeat drawn out through a siren. The floor lights dimmed. The backup red strobes began to blink in intervals. Alert, unauthorized access detected pod, #19. I ran to the console. The screen flickered, then cleared. The pod was open, not unsealed open. The lid was lifted halfway, fog rolling out across the floor like breath escaping a crypt. The temperature reading was fluctuating wildly, numbers shifting in and out of coherent values, -16 degrees Celsius, -7 degrees Celsius, 200 degrees Celsius, ERR. The vitals, blank, just a black screen. I should have run. I wanted to run, but I didn't. Instead, I backed toward the end of the hallway, keeping my eyes fixed on the fog. Nothing moved at first, but then, something stepped out of the mist. It wasn't fast, it wasn't loud, it just was 1 second fog. The next, a silhouette, tall, gaunt, skin pale like freezer-burned meat, stretched over wire. The face was obscured, blurred in a way that made it impossible to focus on. My eyes couldn't find its shape, like it was constantly shifting the moment I looked at it. Its head tilted slightly, the way a person does when they're trying to recognize you. And then it moved. No sound, no heavy footfalls. It just advanced, and the hallway grew narrower. I turned and ran, down the corridor, past the locked pods, down through the auxiliary wing. I didn't know where I was going, only away. The lights stuttered as I moved. Some burst overhead, showering sparks. Doors opened before I touched them. Others slammed shut without warning. The building wasn't just reacting, it was helping it. I ducked into the break room and slammed the door behind me. Deadbolted it. Silence. For a moment, I thought I'd imagined it all. That maybe I was sleep deprived, losing it, paranoid from the logs. Then the doorknob began to turn, slowly, deliberately, metal grinding against metal, as if being twisted not by a hand, but by intention. I stumbled back, reaching for the emergency drawer. Inside, thank God, was the personal stun gun they issued during orientation, more a formality than real protection. But it made me feel less helpless. The doorknob stopped moving. I waited. 30 seconds. A minute. Nothing. Then I heard breathing. Not from the door, from behind me. I spun around, and there it was, in the reflection of the break room's microwave door, standing inside the room. Not physically, not in the air, but in the mirrored surface like it had slipped sideways into some space, just out of sync. It was watching me, its head tilted again, and in my own reflection, I wasn't alone. There was a second shadow behind my shoulders. Not moving, just waiting. I slammed the microwave door shut. That seemed to shatter the moment. The lights blinked. The reflection was normal again, but I knew the truth. It didn't need to walk through doors. It wasn't bound by the rules of reality the way I was. The only thing that kept it at bay were the rules in the binder, and now I'd broken too many. I made it back to the command console at 3:07 a.m. I forced myself to sit in the chair, to do what the rules said, at exactly 3:12 a.m. Check the northwest corridor camera manually. The screen flickered, static, then clarity. The figure stood there, eyes closed. But this time, it wasn't alone. I saw myself on the other side of the hallway, in the frame, but I was still sitting in the chair. I looked down, my hands were shaking. On the screen, my other self raised its hand. The figure opened its eyes, and in that moment, I felt it enter the room. Not a breeze, not a noise, just awareness. A pressure behind my eyes. Something inside me whispered, Now we see each other. I don't know how long I sat there. Time fractured, bled sideways. When I finally blinked, the screen was blank again. The hallway, empty dot, the figure gone. But something was different now. My reflection doesn't always follow my movements. Sometimes it lags. Sometimes it looks back before I turn. Something followed me home last night, and I think it's wearing me. I waited until my next shift to confront Hartley. He was already inside when I arrived, standing by the command console, reviewing logs that hadn't been there the night before. He didn't look up when I walked in, didn't acknowledge me at all. Pod 19 opened. I said, "Nothing." I saw what came out. I saw it. "Follow me." His fingers paused over the keyboard, hovering. Then he slowly turned, but something was wrong. Hartley looked the same, but older. Not aged, expired. His skin sagged slightly, like gravity had pulled it too hard. His eyes were dull, glassy, like they hadn't blinked in hours. "You should stop looking where you're not meant to," he said, voice low and flat. "The rules exist for a reason." "I followed them," I said, "but it didn't matter. You knew this would happen. You knew about Pod 19. He smiled then, not a kind smile, a tired, practiced one. "I told you," he said, "this place remembers things." I stepped closer. "What is it, Hartley? What's in that pod?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he walked to the observation window and placed both palms against the glass. "The same place we're supposed to leave the blood offering. I used to be like you," he said. "Curious, careless. Thought the rules were just superstition, until I watched someone break Rule 6. Thought the offering was unnecessary. Just a joke. What happened? They didn't make it to morning," he whispered. "But something did. Something wearing their skin." I felt ice crawl up my spine. "So why keep working here?" I asked. "Why not shut the place down?" Hartley turned to me, and for the first time, there was something genuine in his face. Regret, desperation, because if we leave, it spreads. If no one's here to follow the rules, it starts making its own. A silence passed between us. Then, I noticed it. Hartley's reflection in the window, it didn't match his movements. When he turned his head, the reflection stayed still. When he stepped back, it leaned forward. It was watching me. I backed away, heart pounding. "You're not, Hartley." He blinked slowly. "I was, once." I reached for the stun gun in my jacket. Too late. He was in front of me before I could react, hand on my wrist, grip cold and impossibly strong. His breath smelled like ammonia and rust. "The offering," he hissed, "is not for protection. It's for permission." He let go, and I stumbled back. "I can't hold it back much longer," he said, voice splintering like ice. "Every shift it takes more. It's learning, through me, through you." Then he did something I didn't expect. He pulled a scalpel from his coat pocket, turned it on himself, and drew a deep, clean line across his palm. The blood hit the observation window, and the whole facility shuddered. Lights flickered. A low, groaning sound echoed from beneath the cryo floor. The temperature gauge spiked, then dropped, and then silence. Hartley collapsed to his knees, wheezing. "Go," he rasped, before it seized too much. "But what about you?" He looked up, eyes now hollow sockets, blood trailing from his ears. "I'm not your mentor," he whispered. "I'm your warning." Then he fell sideways, still, empty. I backed out of the room, slowly. The last thing I saw before the door closed was Hartley's reflection, still standing in the glass smiling. I didn't call anyone. There's no one to call. Not the police. Not emergency services. Not even the red line. They don't answer. Not really. Just voicemail and a void, so I went back to the console. The monitors were still on, but the feeds were ... wrong. Each one showed a different part of the lab, but they weren't synced. Some were running backwards, some too fast, some completely still. But one thing was consistent across every screen. There were two of me, not in every feed. Just enough to make it undeniable. I'd be walking past a pod on one screen, then see myself already around the corner on another. On one monitor, I stood motionless outside pod number 19, hand raised like I was reaching toward it. But I wasn't there. I was in the control room, watching it happen. Whatever was in the lab now, it had started copying me, not just my shape, my habits, my roots, my choices. That's when I understood the worst part of what Hartley had said. The offering wasn't protection, it was permission. By following the rules, by playing along, we were inviting it in, feeding it our routines, our identities. And now, it had learned enough. I stared at the camera feed again. My duplicate slowly turned to face the lens. It tilted, its head exactly as I had the night before. Then, it smiled. A perfect mirror of my own nervous smile. I had to choose. Stay and keep playing its game. Pretend the rules still mattered. Pretend that there was still someone enforcing them. Or break them all. Expose the lab, burn it down, seal it forever. I pulled up the override terminal emergency shutdown protocols, required to administrator keys. Hartley's was logged into the system. I used my own badge to authorize the second. Warning, system stabilization will cease. All pods will depressurize. I hesitated. If I did this, everything inside those pods, dozens of them, maybe hundreds, could be released. But if I didn't, pod number P wouldn't need the others. It was enough. The intercom buzzed before I could finish the sequence. A voice crackled through the speaker. My voice. Don't. You'll only make it worse. I turned, heart pounding. No one there, just the empty hallway behind the control room glass. But on the speaker, my voice continued. You don't understand it. Not yet. It doesn't want to escape. It wants to be here now, through you. I slammed the intercom off. Typed the last command. Authorization accepted. Cryo containment. Releasing. Timer. 90 seconds. The red warning lights turned on across the cryo floor. Steam hissed from the vents above the pods, one by one. Lids began to unlock. A low alarm echo, dull, hollow, like metal being struck underwater. I grabbed the binder. The rules. I don't know why. Habit. Ritual. Maybe because part of me still hoped they could help. As I turned to run, the hallway lights cut out. Every one of them. Darkness flooded toward me like ink pouring into a glass of water, and in that silence footsteps, not hurried, not loud, just mimicking mine, a second behind, always one step behind. I ran, past the lockers, past the server room, toward the elevator. My badge wouldn't scan, the doors wouldn't open. The building didn't want to let me leave, because it thought I wasn't me anymore. Behind me, something whispered, let me finish becoming you. I turned and slammed my fist against the elevator panel. No response. Then I remembered the maintenance shaft. Rule 7. Never look inside the shaft. Even if something knocks. I was out of options. I ran. The shaft door groaned open with a sick, wet sound, like something organic peeling away from steel. There was no ladder. Just darkness. A vertical tunnel pulsing with cold air and the low vibration of machinery or breath. It wasn't clear anymore which was which. The thing chasing me didn't run. It didn't have to. It knew I was already cornered. I gripped the edge and slid in feet first. The metal was slick, greasy. Not with oil, but with condensation and something thicker. Like blood that had been scrubbed but never cleaned. I dropped for what felt like forever. When I landed, the ground didn't feel like floor. It gave beneath me a soft, sponge-like resistance, like standing on flesh under tension. A single light flickered above a maintenance bulb, barely functioning, enough to see them. The pods, dozens of them, not sealed, not labeled, just open. Some were empty, some were empty, some were still occupied. But none of them were asleep. Their eyes followed me as I stumbled past, not blinking, not angry, just patient, like I was late at the far end of the shaft. I found another panel ancient, rusted, barely holding together. A screen still flickered. Record new subject profile. Why? And I didn't touch it. I couldn't, because something else did it for me. The cursor moved on its own. Why my name appeared, letter by letter. Then a new line below it. Profile. Acceptable. Initiating absorption. I backed away, but my body wouldn't move. Not fully. My hands stayed at my sides, limp, my knees locked. My chest felt like it was being pressed inward. I wasn't being possessed. I was being replaced. Above me, I heard the facility alarms finally shut off. No more red lights. No more beeping. Just silence. Complete. Total silence. Then footsteps again. Only this time, not behind me, in front. Something stepped out of one of the open pods. Same height, same build, same uniform. It looked at me. I looked at it, and it smiled. Not cruelly, just ... finished. Like, the last piece had finally clicked into place. I don't remember what happened next, but I woke up in the break room an hour before. My shift ended. Everything was clean. Hartley was gone. Pod number 19 was sealed again, the frost untouched. The monitors were normal. Everything was exactly as it should be. Except one thing. When I walked past the observation window, I wasn't in. The reflection it was. Still smiling. Still waiting.